Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where as you can see, we are already on our way. We've burned off the oxidizer, we got our refueling done, all off camera, and we burned some of our fuel. We are currently en route to a flyby past the moon, and it should be absolutely fine. So we're going to warp up over here. This will be a bit of an abbreviated trip. There's no doubt about that. We've done this a bunch of times at this point, and there's going to be some stuff that I'm going to be cutting out, for sure. This is a heavier payload than we've had previously, but I think we've got enough Delta V. We should. I think. Right? Maybe. We'll see. We're not targeting as energy intensive of a trip as previously. Oh, when I warped, this changed again. This is no longer quite pushing us out of the solar system. So at this periapsis, we're just going to push up like that, 20 meters per second. I wish that it wouldn't do this. I'm hoping that's a bug that KSP2 fixes, that it changes the orbit once you enter warp. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if that's a bug with one of the mods that we're running or what, but it's very irritating. No doubt about that. Well, at any rate, this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy warp, so let's get into position for this, and we will be back when we're ready for this small corrective burn. It's only 20 meters per second. It shouldn't be too bad. See you guys in a bit. Okay, and here we are at the end of the warp. We are going to need to get in position for it, and turning is kind of exciting. So let's go ahead and warp towards this. We need to start our burn in about 30 seconds. 20. 10. Looks like we're close enough. 3, 2, 1, mark. So we'll just push this out. I actually saw an escape trajectory there with another gravity assist around the moon, but this will be absolutely fine. There's another one, but this will do. We'll save the extra 12.3 meters per second. Looks good. So at this point, we are, of course, going to be warping to around here. That'll be fine. And we only burned about 8 meters per second to get out there. So we're going to need to, of course, set Joule as our target. There we go. And at the descending node, we're going to need to get our inclination change done. So 1.3 degrees. Let's go ahead and prepare for that. So about a 200 meter per second burn. That'll be a roughly 5-minute burn. So that'll be exciting. Let's go ahead and get aligned for that and warp onto it. That burn will be starting in about 27 days, but because it is a pretty lengthy burn, we are going to prep for this burn, and we will be back shortly before the end of the burn. See you guys in a bit. Okay, here we are, roughly 30-ish seconds before the end of our inclination change burn, and we're definitely low thrust to weight here. There's no doubt about that. This is the heaviest payload we've ever delivered out this far, by far. Like, bar none. And, we'll see. We'll see what we've got. So we need to plot a course to Tylo next. We need to get this thing in orbit over Tylo. That needs to be the current goal. So I just want to see here. This should be good enough. Yes, indeed. Okay, so we need to head out to Joule. So the question is, where are we going to find a good intercept? Well, it's going to be a pretty beefy burn, but we're not shocked about that. That's actually an intercept just right there. And are we coming in retrograde? Actually, this is not retrograde. So we definitely want to pull this in a little closer. We want to angle directly for Tylo here. So let's pull this on in. Cool. And the question is, how is this for a Tylo encounter? Well, it's not ideal. We can certainly bring the node here down. So 1.7, 1.6 degrees. It's probably not going to be perfect. Indeed not. Unfortunately, this timing isn't great. So, we could pull this out this direction and go for an encapsulation. Hypothetically. It's definitely non-great timing. The other option, and this does give us an encounter of a sort. I mean, yeah, that's actually a good encounter. How much delta V is that? 1300. That's getting up there. That's getting real up there. That is basically circularized, though. So that's looking at 3000 DV to get that done. That's basically our entire nuclear engine. But that's pretty much what we had planned, I feel like. That said, this is a 1 hour burn time. Oh, goodness. Okay. That's a lengthy one. No doubt about that. This burn starts in 24 days. Out of curiosity, can we find a better encounter? So what we would do is we would get rid of this. Oh, come on. There we go. Mouse over that button. We would get rid of that, and we would change the timing here ever so slightly. We're going to need to pop back over here and change that timing to be something maybe more like that. So now we're going to pop back over to Joule. Now we are coming in retrograde. So that is noted. And we're going to need to pull that around. To be something more along the lines of this. Set Tylo as our target. And what does that timing do for us? Actually, we see a reasonable encounter right there. Semi-reasonable, anyway. So I want to bring this guy around. Ooh, semi-reasonable indeed. I want to bring it... Ooh, that's very sensitive. Okay. Something like this. That's not quite equatorial, but it's close. That's pretty equatorial. Bringing it in a little closer, if we can. 200,000 kilometers? That's not shabby. 70 kilometers. That's nice. We're probably going to have to do a corrective burn, but what would this braking and circularization be combined to be? So that would be a combined... That would be 300 DV over what we were looking before. This seems reasonable. Indeed it does. That seems quite reasonable, in fact. So that would be virtually our entire nuclear engines, maybe a little bit of this to get us into that orbit. But from there, we should have more than enough to land on this. Remember, we have like 3 times as much delta V here as we think we need to land on. So in theory, I feel like that's okay. Cool. So we're going to warp on forward here. And we're going to prepare for this burn. This is a 1 hour burn. So that's a long time, right? No doubt about that. Even in physics warp, that's going to be a 15-minute burn. Oh boy. Okay, I'm thinking about delivery time for this video right now, and that's looking like the video might be a little bit on the late side. I apologize for that if that's the case. I was not necessarily expecting this to be a 1 hour burn. Okay. We can't really do anything else in the meantime either. It pretty much just has to be burning here. Because I was thinking about, well, maybe we can go send one of our other ships in the Joule system somewhere. Well, no. We don't have time for that. We can't. We have to burn this. It's sad, but here we are. So we're going to commence this burn shortly. Okay. 8 seconds until we commence the burn. And it's going to be a lengthy burn. No doubt about that one. 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. Let's commence that physics warp. I'm going to quick save in case there's a Kraken, but there really shouldn't be. There should be no problems whatsoever, and it should be fine. So I guess I'll be back in like 15 minutes of real time, 1 hour of game time. See you guys in a bit. Okay, so we're close to the end of the burn here, but I discovered that this fuel tank, one of these, this one right here, actually never got its liquid fuel turned back on. So we weren't drawing out of this tank when we tried to burn the oxidizer last episode. We never turned that back off for this particular tank. So this tank wasn't draining its fuel. The rest of these are almost out of fuel, but this one has a little ways to go. So we're going to have our staging event happening shortly here. In theory, like 160 seconds. But that'll be fine. We're not drawing out of these center tanks just yet. But this tank has a ways to go yet. I've checked the other tanks. They appear to all be draining correctly. Because I was like, hang on, this is not the right amount of fuel showing up here. So that's what tipped me off to check all of these. And I'm glad I did, because we found this X232 tank with full fuel. So that would have been bad. So we're going to have our staging event here in about 40 seconds now. Now about 30. 20. Let's come out of physics warp now. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so all of those tanks are out of here. Beautiful. Okay, and we've got a little bit left to burn here. And actually, that brought up our expected amount of delta V here, apparently. That's interesting. It must not have been calculating with the detachment of those tanks, because this was previously 975. Now it's 1100. We have like an extra 200 DV here. I mean, that's probably from, like, in terms of our overall DV, but I wouldn't have expected it to be calculated here. It was probably from this extra tank that I found, but I would not have expected it to be calculated into here. That's very strange, but whatever. I guess we've got an extra 200 DV. We'll take it. Absolutely. I'm not too concerned about our DV numbers. I think we'll be okay. But I do definitely... Okay, just checking that strutting. I do definitely want to make sure that, well, we're definitely going to be fine. With that extra 200 DV, I have no compulsion in saying we're going to be fine. 100%. So that'll be okay. We've got about 50 meters per second left to go in this burn. I'm going to take us out of physics warp, and I want to head on over to Tylo here. We need to make sure that we nail this, right? We need to get this really, really close to what we have lined up here. Luckily, our thrust to weight is so low that this is very, very controllable. So we need about 25 more meters per second, and we're not even in the Joule system yet. Oh, no, we are. We're bringing this on in. Beautiful. So we need about another 15 meters per second, right? And that'll be absolutely fine. 10 meters per second. 7, 6, 5. We're not coming in retrograde, are we? I don't think we are. Okay, I overshot it. We need to move around to retrograde here. And I'm going to turn this guy down to like 10% thrust. We need to do a corrective burn, because we have overshot here. Let's get this turned, eventually. Eventually it'll turn. Very slowly. Wow, this thing turns slow. We're not shocked about that, though, realistically. The gimbaling on the mainsail should be more than enough to handle that, and it'll turn faster and faster, especially as these side tanks get burned out. But we're just going to head over here and do a quick corrective burn. Eventually, we'll make our way over. eventually. So yeah, this is pretty much just retrograde, which is pretty much what we expected. So we're going to bring this on over and do a really quick corrective burn here, because we need to get this angled approximately correctly, right? So we're going to get this moved on in any moment now. Man, this turning is slow. Thrust to weight of 0.01, but that's with our thrust limiter. So that's to be expected. I'm going to kill that rotational momentum there, and we'll just head on over. Okay, this is going to take 4 days at this level of burn. Okay, let's bring this on in. Beautiful. That's close enough, I think. 37 kilometers? That should be a safe orbital distance over Tylo. So we'll add a maneuver here. And as expected, this burns out our full nuclear engine. And we're just circularizing this. Bring that in nice and close. I mean, that's not, like, tremendously close, is it? Needs to come something kind of like... Man, our timing just isn't great here, I think. Yeah, we need to change the timing. There we go. Something more like that, and then bring it around. That's better. That's much, much better. Okay, so we'll align for that burn. We'll go ahead and physics warp our way on over. This is going to be a 2-hour-long burn at this thrust limiting. we want to bring that back up. Now it's going to be a 17-minute burn, and that's more like it. So it looks like we're going to take roughly like 700 DV out of this stage. I think that's acceptable. I mean, we don't really have an option, but I think that'll do just fine. This is going to be a 2-year warp and a 17-minute burn, so we're going to warp on over. It's going to be a long warp and a long burn, so as usual, we'll be back probably close to this staging event. This section will go quite quickly, in all honesty, because it's got the mainsail. So this section will go quickly. We'll be close to this staging event when we're back. See you guys in a bit. Okay, so here we are near-ish the end of the time warp, not the actual burn. I changed my mind based on the timing of the video right now, the fact that it's already late for today, and the fact that we're... Oh, hello, Jewel. The fact that we're definitely not going to have time to do the landing in this episode, looking at the fact that it's going to be over here in a few minutes. So I think that we should really do this burn on camera, and we'll just save the actual landing for next episode. So that'll be fine. We're loading into the Julian or Tylo sphere of influence right now. Tylo. Hello, Tylo. And there's Lathe in the background with Jewel. And I'm not sure which one this is, but that's another moon there. So that's great. Our burn is going to start in about a minute here. So I'm going to go ahead and warp forward a little bit here. 20 seconds. And 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. We're going to physics warp this burn. The nuclear engine portion of this will be pretty lengthy. That's for sure. So we're going to bring this in, and we may have to do some small corrections for this. Reason being, we're low thrust to weight ratio here, and then this is going to be relatively high thrust to weight ratio, right? Now, this stage here is going to be much higher. This stage, we know that we never were going to have 1.0 thrust to weight ratio with these strap-on fuel tanks. We knew that for a fact. But the fuel tanks are intended to be burned up fairly quickly. Note that it's 276 seconds of burn time, but fairly quickly, and then detached, and then we land on this. And then we get rid of that and, like, push it out of the way with a Kerbal or something. Hopefully it doesn't impact one of our landing legs here. These are what we're going to be landing on. We push it out of the way, and then we lower these down, right? So that's the overall idea for the actual landing. Now, looking at our orbital velocity here, I did already make sure as we were warping that we were coming in prograde, not retrograde. This is correct. We are not coming in retrograde, so that's good. We can look at our surface velocity here and see that it's almost identical to our orbital velocity. So that gives us a good amount of information on what we're going to have to kill our horizontal speed. It looks reasonably okay. We're not going to be like tremendously nail-bitey on the Delta V. It's going to be a little bit nail-bitey, but that's mostly because our nuclear engine was a lot less efficient with all of this fuel, right? So that's the primary concern at this point. But we're going to bring this on in. We've got this braking burn underway, and it should be reasonably fine. Got about another 400 seconds of burn on our atomic rocket motor here. And then that will be ditched, and we're going to start burning out of these tanks. They all have fuel ducts that run inward. So it should be completely fine. We'll burn that fuel off and get rid of it. And as we burn it, this thrust to weight will come up as well. It will approach this number, although it won't quite reach it until we ditch these tanks, of course, because they do have an empty mass. So we've got about another 7 minutes on this burn. All is looking good here. 270 seconds left on our nuclear engine. Remember, the vast majority of this time is going to be in the nuclear engine. Once the mainsail fires up, things are going to get a lot faster in terms of thrust to weight. This thrust to weight is quite low, but that's to be expected. You can see here our orbital speed is currently increasing. That's because we are falling towards this periapsis, which again is fully expected. This feels really wacky to be coming in like this. But we've got another 130 seconds, or about 2 minutes of burn time on this engine. Now, I'm going to unphysics warp us as we get closer. I have no idea how much power this is really going to feel like it has. This feels really wacky. Actually, our apoapsis height is inside the planet right now. What? That's not right. Okay. We've got 30 seconds of burn left here. We need to be at, like, surface retrograde. This is definitely not what we were expecting. Okay, let's get rid of that maneuver then. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Let's get decelerating. We're coming in much hotter than we were expecting to. Realistically, we need to be going, like, upwards some. Burning something like this. Bringing our apoapsis back up. Okay, there we go. Actually, our periapsis is currently 2 kilometers. We need to bring this up more. We need to be sitting around here. There we go. I don't know what happened there exactly, but there was some wackiness. It should be okay. We're going to push this up to around 20 kilometers. Is going to be the idea here. Time to periapsis is currently decreasing, which is expected. I'm going to give us more altitude. 11 kilometers. Actually, let's target 15. 12. 13. 14. And almost there. And we'll call it good. Okay, so we need to, at this point, head around to retrograde. And be pulling down our apoapsis, right? That's for sure something that needs to happen here. We're going up at this point, so we're not going to impact. That's a good sign. That's a real good sign. What isn't so good a sign is how much we actually ended up burning there. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened with our nuclear engine there. The nuclear engine appears to have survived as well. Was our projection just wrong, or is that just indicative of the fact that it was unloaded? I'm not sure. Regardless, we're going to continue to bring this in pure retrograde for the moment. We're not that concerned about the periapsis height. We just want to bring the apoapsis height down for right now. We now have landing data. That didn't populate in before. I wonder if we were having bugs again. That's a possibility. A distinct possibility. Let's just do something like this and bring it in for a landing. At this point, we don't have much else to do. We have burned through most of our delta V margin, so we're going to have to be pretty careful here. It is time to put a cut in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to bring this in for a landing. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Spartan News, Unisol, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.